On the Gaia continent, monsters have been mysteriously vanishing for several years now. At first, people thought these creatures were just going extinct, but surprise, surprise, they were actually being whisked away to another dimension. This twist is precisely what one particular mage had been hoping to uncover all along. This mage has spent ages studying the sudden monster exodus, though he's still clueless as to the why and how of their interdimensional trips. Instead, his real focus is on how he can harness this power for himself. After gathering every scrap of research he could find, he finally set up a magic circle deep within a dungeon called the Great Labyrinth. Now, with all his work coming to fruition, he sets the coordinates, channels his mana, and steps onto the magic circle, ready for the grand leap to another world. A brilliant light flares up around him as the spell takes effect, illuminating everything in a radiant aura. Then, in a blink, everything goes still. Confused, the mage realizes that while the air feels different and the temperature is off, he's not in another dimension after all. Nope, he's still outside the dungeon, or rather, the entire dungeon has been transported to another dimension, leaving him stuck in a hole where the dungeon used to be. Meanwhile, in a different dimension, a young man stands in his attic, gaping at the interdimensional portal that suddenly popped up before him. Up until a few seconds ago, his day was pretty ordinary. Kong Janik had been going about his work, observing the bustling college students around him, feeling a twinge of nostalgia for the days when he, too, had passion and purpose. Nowadays, though, as a D-rank hunter, he doesn't exactly have the luxury of career dreams. His coworker snaps him back to reality, reminding him that they're only halfway through their workload and there's no time for standing around. After a grueling day, the two men finally rest in their van. Oddly, Gene Hook is barely bundled up despite the chilly weather. Turns out, one perk of being a hunter, no matter how low-ranking, is an enhanced tolerance to temperature, saving him a nice chunk of change on his heating bill. Sure, hunters enjoy some nifty perks, but Gene Q's still slogging it out in part-time labor jobs. Why? Because he's flat broke, and with all the guilds monopolizing hunter gigs, there's not much he can do about it. A local serial killer has been wreaking havoc, targeting hunters from top guilds, and now those guilds are greedily snapping up every hunter job in sight. So much for climbing the ranks anytime soon. Today, however, seems to be Gene Yu's lucky day. A loud crash, followed by screaming, echoes from the school area. This is his chance. Chaos like that can only mean monsters are on the loose, and just bagging a few could set him up with enough cash to coast for a whole year. But as luck would have it, his dreams are promptly crushed when a man barrels in, shoving Jinnik aside as several other hunters swoop onto the scene. Titan, the guild managing the area, is already there, and in a flash, they take control of the situation. Duyin, the deputy guild master, snaps at Jinnik, telling him to get lost unless he's itching for a one-way ticket to the afterlife. The gap between him, a mere D rank, and an A rank hunter from a big-time guild is just too massive to bridge. With his aspirations trampled, he trudges on to his next part-time gig, hoping at least it will pay a few bills. Later, as he arrives home, weighed down by a hefty dose of defeat, he hears a strange noise coming from deeper in his apartment. Investigating, he finds himself face-to-face with a portal to another world, packed with monsters. The creatures can't seem to see him, and he's able to pass through with zero weird reactions on his end. This could be the break he's been looking for. Heading downstairs to gather his thoughts, he ponders his options. This portal is definitely some sort of dungeon, a concept that up until now had only existed in theory. Had it appeared anywhere but his attic, he'd be thrilled. But it's here, in his own home, which complicates things. Reporting it to the association would mean they'd kick him out for investigative purposes. So his only real choice is to keep it under wraps and claim it as his own. First, he needs to confirm if monsters can cross over to his side of the portal. Thankfully, they can't see him, a definite plus, given that he could handle, at best, 2 or 3 goblins solo. If a whole group decided to jump through, he'd be toast. With nothing left to lose, he takes a deep breath and steps through the portal, landing on the first floor of a dungeon maze. He barely has time to take in his surroundings before a goblin rushes him from the left, club in hand. Narrowly dodging, he scrambles back into his attic, watching as the goblin looks around, confused, swinging at the empty air. It seems they really can't see the portal from their side, which also means they can't come through it either. With that knowledge, his fear evaporates. He grabs a baseball bat, hops back through the portal, and charges the goblin head-on. Swinging with all his might, he catches the goblin on the cheek, sending it flying, and follows up with a decisive stab to its chest. With his first monster hunt under his belt, he raises the bat and brings it down on the goblin's head, ending the fight instantly. For the first time, he's hunted solo, and with no one to share the spoils, all the experience points are his. His level, stagnant for the past 3 years, immediately ticks up, and the goblin's body is his to sell. A potential 3 million won if he plays his cards right. The next day, he heads to a hunter's market, trying to sell off the goblin corpse. One look at the body, and the merchant can tell our guy's a newbie. His inexperience has severely lowered the goblin's market value. Still, Jinnik manages to secure a little over 3 million won, just as he'd hoped. All he needs to do now is provide the area where he hunted the goblin for verification. That's one piece of information Jinnik can't afford to reveal. If anyone finds out there's a dungeon in his attic, his profits could vanish faster than a goblin hit by a baseball bat. While Jinnik is trying to figure out a way to escape his latest predicament, a group of hunters from the Black Dragon Guild storms in like a pack of hyenas on the scent of fresh prey. Apparently, someone dared to steal a kill from their territory, and they're not pleased. At first, they zero in on Jinnik, ready to confront him, but the merchant quickly redirects their wrath to a blonde-haired hunter who, oblivious to the whole situation, becomes the unfortunate target. The hunters close in on him, and after a quick introduction, he's left barely able to stand. Sneaking into their territory to hunt monsters without permission? Big mistake. For all they know, he could even be the serial killer they're hunting. With the poor guy barely able to string a sentence together, they drag him out of the building to continue their interrogation elsewhere. Watching the scene unfold, Jinnik realizes that he could have easily been in the blonde's shoes. Knowing that there's no way he can lie his way out of where he got the goblin from, he decides that selling it here isn't worth the risk. If he values his life, he'll have to find another way to offload his loot without dealing with goons from the big guilds. As soon as Jinnik gets back home, he decides it's time to level up. Before he heads back into the dungeon, he arms himself with a teleportation stone for quick escapes back to his apartment, a monster tracking compass with a 50-meter range, and of course, his trusty baseball bat. Fully equipped, he steps back into the dungeon for a monster-slaying spree, each victory ticking up his level by 1. True to its name, the Goblin Labyrinth is packed with goblins, making it the perfect playground for someone at his level to grind for experience. After a long day of hunting, his inventory is nearly maxed out. He's got room for just one more goblin. He hopes it'll be a big one for some extra cash. The compass pings, showing a goblin approaching his location. Perfect. All he needs to do is hide and launch a surprise attack. Jinnik positions himself around a corner, waits for the perfect moment, and swings his bat right into the face of a remarkably short man. To Jinnik's horror, it's not a goblin, but a very irate stranger, shouting at him in a language he can't understand. Jinnik hurriedly bows an apology, which seems to calm the man down just enough. The stranger pulls 2 necklaces from a bag, hands one to Jinnik, and as soon as Jinnik puts it on, he can suddenly understand every furious word the man is saying. That's when he realizes 2 things. First, the guy has every reason to be mad, having just taken a bat to the face. And second, this isn't just a short man. It's a dwarf, a mythical being he'd only read about in fantasy novels. As the dwarf continues to rant, Jinnik helps pick up the items scattered around, all of which look exceptionally high quality. Unfortunately, he doesn't get a chance to admire them before the dwarf notices his bat and snatches it up, demanding to know where Jinnik got it. Baffled, Jinnik explains it's just an ordinary aluminum baseball bat, but the dwarf seems to think it's made from orichalcum, a highly prized metal. To the dwarf, this ordinary bat is so valuable that no amount of money could buy it. Instead, he offers Jinnik a trade, some rare items from his own stash in exchange for the bat. Seeing no reason to refuse, Jinnik follows the dwarf back to his workshop, watching as the dwarf takes the bat deeper into the maze of tools and treasures. As Jinnik glances around the workshop, his eyes fall on the various weapons laid out. He can't help but wonder which one he should try to swipe, but the dwarf returns before he can make up his mind. In his hands, Jinnik's newly upgraded baseball bat. For some reason, it's shining bright red and has a slight glow. Jinnik double-checks. Is this really his bat? The dwarf confirms that it's just one of orichalcum's traits. It starts out weak and flimsy, but once enchanted, it becomes incredibly strong and durable. That last word catches Jinnik's attention. Enchanted. Somehow, the dwarf managed to enchant his bat. Testing a few swings, Jinnik notices it feels entirely different from what he remembers. It's almost hard to believe that something this powerful could even exist, let alone be made from an ordinary aluminum bat. He checks his status menu, and sure enough, his bat is now classified as a legendary item, boasting S-grade durability and an automatic retrieval feature. Jinnik's once basic bat has turned into an ultra-rare treasure. Selling this would be a jackpot, but the item's bound to him now, so no dice. Still, even if he can't make money off the bat, he can always make some cash with the goblin corpses he's stashed in his inventory. The problem? He can't sell them openly without drawing unwanted attention. His best option is the Hunter Industries black market. They don't ask questions and have a solid setup for dealing with unique inventory. Jinnik heads home, uses one of the black market business cards, and tracks down a suspicious-looking address. The card screams shady, but it's all he's got. While searching for the entrance, a man named Deputy Cho Hyung-il calls down to him and invites Jinnik to meet the boss. The boss, Lee Jun-chul, is a loan shark disguised as a loan agent who also dabbles in monster corpses on the side. When Jinnik lays out 20 goblin corpses for inspection, the two men are stunned. Despite being a newbie, Jinnik managed to bring in such a huge haul, and in incredible condition too, well, except for the bashed-in heads. As they're negotiating prices, they're interrupted by a black market merchant rushing in to announce that a monster has shown up nearby. Turns out, laying out 20 fresh goblin corpses was like putting up a neon sign for nearby monsters. Worse yet, two orcs, definitely out of Jinnik's league, appear, and Jinnik quickly realizes he has two options: grab his corpses and run, or become orc food. But it's too late. One of the orcs is already swinging a battle axe straight at his head. He dodges the first swing, but the second one's too close. Just when he thinks it's game over, his enchanted bat magically summons itself from his inventory and blocks the attack, sending the orc flying back. Another enchantment, presence detection. With this bat, Jinnik might actually stand a chance. As the orc charges again, Jinnik, now more confident, goes on the offensive. He smashes the bat down on the orc's knee, disorienting it, and follows up with a strike to its face, snapping its neck instantly. Just like that, his level jumps from 24 to 36, before he can celebrate the second orc attacks. This time, he dodges, runs behind it, and slams his bat into its back, then finishes it off with a blow to the head. With the orcs defeated, Jinnik smirks, turns back to the men, and suggests they add the orc corpses to their deal. That day, he walks away with a spring in his step, having convinced them to pay him 15% above market price. His bank account is now a sight to behold, and, thanks to saving the black market crew, he secured a reliable buyer for his future loot. Clearly, the black market guys have realized Jinnik isn't some low-level thief. They're looking at a hunter strong enough to take down two orcs solo. Even with his legendary bat and newfound strength, though, he knows he'll need better gear to tackle higher-grade monsters. Fortunately, he's got a plan to score his next upgrades, maybe even for free. The next day, Jinnik shows up with a crate full of beer cans and alcohol for the dwarf, thinking he'd struck gold. After all, the dwarf loves aluminum, so why not beer cans? The dwarf's eyes widen, seeing the crate full of orichalcum. He tries a can, only to spit it out immediately, the taste absolutely horrible. To avoid another shouting match, Jinnik quickly offers him some soju instead. The dwarf takes a swig, and while he's mildly satisfied, there's clearly room for improvement. Jinnik can sense it. The dwarf is looking for that extra kick. Taking advantage of the moment, the dwarf gives Jinnik a new quest: mine some mithril ore. What does mithril have to do with alcohol? Who knows, but Jinnik wants free gear, so he's in. He dives deeper into the labyrinth, emerging at a large forest clearing on the second floor. A menu pops up, telling him he can record this location as a warp point. Jinnik has no idea what a warp point is, but accepts anyway, creating a portal to travel between floors. He ventures further, reaching the second floor, ominously called Dogs and Skeletons. Immediately, monster dogs leap at him. Compared to the orcs he fought before, these are nothing more than free XP. He swings his bat with abandon, wiping out 25 of them and collecting their corpses. That haul alone should net him a solid 200 million won. Tempting as the money is, he has to stay focused on his mission, mining that mithril ore. As he journeys deeper, skeletons start appearing. Since skeletons can't be sold and must be destroyed by breaking their core, Jinnik realizes why the dwarf sent him instead of going himself. Skeletons are an absolute pain to deal with, but they do help boost his level to 100, unlocking a new class. Expecting a berserker or warrior class after all the fighting he's done, he's shocked to find out he's been designated a cleric. After dispatching the skeletons, he finally collects the mithril ore. The dwarf, who doubted he'd make it back alive, seems impressed. As a reward, he offers to forge anything Jinnik wants. Already armed with a legendary bat, Jinnik requests lightweight armor that can still withstand heavy hits. The dwarf gets to work, and Jinnik heads home for a well-deserved nap. A few hours later, he returns to find the dwarf ready with a new piece, mithril chainmail. It's designed to fit snugly under his shirt and hoodie, making it the perfect hidden armor. To demonstrate, the dwarf smacks Jinnik in the chest with a hammer, an attack that would have normally broken a rib or two, but Jinnik barely feels it. With this armor and his enchanted bat, his combat skills have skyrocketed. Meeting this dwarf was definitely the lucky break he'd been waiting for. But the dwarf isn't done. He hands Jinnik a large barrel of soju, made from the mithril or Jinnik brought back. Jinnik takes it home to try and discovers the dwarf was right. The mithril barrel has transformed the soju into something completely unique. With this in hand, he contacts the black market dealer again, offering not only cobalt corpses but now also premium quality liquor. Meanwhile, in another part of town, the Titan Guild is finishing a training session when an unexpected anomaly gate opens, spewing hordes of lizardmen. The deputy guild master, Andon, stubbornly refuses to call for backup, pushing his team to hold the line on their own. Jinnik, however, is having a much better day. His cleric class is now officially registered, and he's been promoted from D rank to C rank. Given that clerics are rare and highly sought after by top guilds, he's excited about the new opportunities. Just then, a bloodied hunter bursts in, desperate for a cleric's help. Jinnik volunteers and is taken to the site where Titan Guild members are locked in battle with the lizardmen. He's instructed to stay in the back and heal as many people as he can. Jinnik wants to jump in on the action, but the guild member assures him that healing is all he needs to do, and he'll be handsomely paid once the fight is over. The healer's presence is enough to keep the guild members fighting, but the waves of lizardmen are relentless. One of the other clerics suggests calling a support guild for backup, as the odds are starting to look grim. Just as Jinnik is considering their next move, he senses a hostile presence behind him. His trusty bat saves him from a near-fatal blow delivered by a sneaky lizard man who somehow bypassed all the hunters, aiming straight for the healers. Realizing that the rear defense has been breached, Jinnik swings his bat, sending the attacker flying. He quickly warns the other clerics about the breach, understanding that he's the only one who can hold them off. The monsters must have used a concealment technique to slip through, planning to ambush the healers from behind. Jinnik instructs the clerics to focus on healing and leave the lizard men to him. The other clerics look at him with concern. They think he's just another ordinary healer like them. But Jinnik charges in, reassuring them with a confidence he's only kind of feeling himself. In reality, he's nervous, but he manages to hold his ground against the onslaught. At one point, a lizard man slips past his guard and lunges for another cleric. Jinnik bolts after it, leaping just in time to intercept the attack. He lands a rush blow, but leaves himself open for a stab from behind. Thankfully, the dwarf's chainmail armor absorbs the impact, leaving the monster in shock when its attack doesn't work. Jinnik seizes the moment, countering with a solid swing to the creature's face, managing to hold the line and allowing the clerics to focus solely on healing. Suddenly, the lizard men freeze as a powerful figure joins the fray, a man who takes down one of the monsters with a single punch. It's Seo Sango, the Titan Guild Master himself. He nods at Jinnik and asks if he was the one who took down all the monsters in the area. Jinnik, a bit confused about who this powerhouse is, admits he was handling things here. The clerics are baffled. How could he not recognize Sango, the infamous S-rank hunter? With no time to spare, Sango heads back into battle, promising to reward Jinnik for his help later. As soon as he steps in, his presence immediately raises everyone's spirits. Everyone except Andon, the deputy guild master, who's clearly irritated. Sango takes charge without hesitation, barking orders and commanding attention from all the hunters. With the area cleared, he unleashes a powerful shockwave attack that sends the lizard men flying. In mere moments, Sango has wiped out the remaining monsters. Satisfied that his guild members are now safe, Sango turns to Andon, grabbing him by the jacket to reprimand him. "What were you thinking, risking your life and the lives of everyone else like that?" Andon claims he just wanted to protect the guild's reputation, but Sango sees through him. "It's not about the guild, is it? It's about your pride." Their tense stare-down is broken when one of the guild members reminds Sango to dismiss the clerics who helped secure the area. Sango composes himself and addresses the hunters, thanking them for their efforts, especially Jinnik, who played a key role in keeping everyone alive. As a gesture of gratitude, Sango invites Jinnik to join the Titan Guild directly, skipping the usual registration process. Andon can't hold back, immediately stepping in to belittle Jinnik as just a D rank who got lucky. Sango isn't having it. He reminds Andon that this mere D rank saved countless lives that would have been lost without his determination. Sango then forces Andon to apologize, delivering a heavy blow to his pride. However, Jinnik declines the offer. He's not interested in joining a guild where people like Andon hold authority. That's the final straw for Andon, who lunges at Jinnik with an enhanced punch, only to be met by Jinnik's bat squarely in the stomach. The blow knocks Andon out cold, and the scene soon makes headlines, sparking quite a buzz in the local news. The next day, the higher-ups of the Titan Guild are seething over what happened to Andon. Not only was he publicly embarrassed by a mere C rank, but he was also demoted from his position as Deputy Guildmaster. They demand that this C rank show up before them to explain himself. However, Sango, the Guild Master, isn't having any of it. He points out that Andon not only put multiple guild members at risk for the sake of his pride, but also attempted to attack someone who fought for their guild. That's more than enough reason for a demotion in Sango's eyes. This comment shuts the gathered crowd down, leaving them with nothing to say. Sango sends them on their way, but his thoughts wander back to the extraordinary C rank he witnessed the other day. Before he grows any stronger, he must get Kong Jinnik to join his guild. No matter what, Jinnik is lounging lazily in his apartment, enjoying a drink while reviewing his expenses. Since he made a lot of money from hunting, he spent more than usual, pushing his expenses to an absurd high. If he had known things would turn out this way, he would have accepted the extra pay the Titan Guild offered him. But hey, it doesn't matter. He has a much better way to earn money. After some much-needed relaxation, he heads back into the dungeon to collect more monster corpses. Hunting the same old monsters isn't enough for him anymore. Now that he's stronger, he craves tougher opponents. He ventures deeper into the second floor than usual and finds himself facing off against a small army of orcs. One of them tries to sneak up from behind, but he deftly sidesteps the attack and retaliates, defeating the orc instantly. As several others swarm around him, Jinnik thinks, just a few days ago, I would have been dead on the spot. Thanks to his new equipment, though, he dispatches them with ease. By the end, he counts a total of 20 orc corpses, enough to keep him financially secure for a whole year. Still feeling energetic, he decides to delve even deeper into the dungeon, entering the third floor, ominously named the Temple Guardian's Labyrinth. At first glance, it appears empty, but that calm is shattered by a sudden tremor shaking the ground. A giant hand bursts out beneath him. Jinnik barely manages to dodge it. Thankfully, he's quick on his feet. The hand belongs to a stone golem, an artificial monster built from mana. Its attacks are too fast for him to dodge, and even when he blocks them, the force sends him staggering back. With limited options left, he realizes that the golem is incredibly strong but lacks the intelligence to wield that strength effectively. Taking advantage of this, Jinnik lands a blow on its head, shattering it into pieces. But wait! The golem starts to reform. Oh right, golems can only be defeated by breaking their core. Jinnik exclaims, remembering this crucial detail just a moment too late. As he tries to retreat and formulate a strategy, the monster regenerates its hand quickly enough to catch him before he can escape. Just when he thinks he's trapped, an arrow flies in and strikes the golem in the chest. Seizing the opportunity, Jinnik follows up with a sharp jab from his bat, breaking the core and defeating it once and for all. He turns to thank his mysterious savior, but instead of the dwarf he expected, he's met with a beautiful woman sporting some peculiar ears. An elf, he thinks. Bowing his head, he thanks her for saving him, but he doesn't notice as she rushes toward him. Before he knows it, she grabs him by the collar, pulling him in for a little interrogation. I haven't seen you in this dungeon before. Who are you? And where did you come from? She demands, her curiosity unyielding. Clearly, she's not from Jinnik's world. His outfit looks entirely unfamiliar. As he struggles to escape her grip, she bombards him with questions. Eventually, she lets him go after he mentions that he entered the dungeon today. That means you know where the entrance is, she exclaims, shoving him to the ground before dropping her bow. Finally, I've found a way out of this dungeon. Jinnik stands up, demanding to know what's going on with her sudden aggression. But the elf ignores him, insisting that he take her to the exit. Not impressed by her boldness, he rolls his eyes but thinks, she is really pretty though. I guess I can let it slide for now. If you guide me out of the dungeon, I'll compensate you handsomely, she promises. After all, I'm a platinum-rank mercenary, so you can trust me. Her name is Lucia, and she's a half-elf who prides herself on being somewhat famous. Surely, he must have heard of her somewhere. But Jinnik has no idea what she's talking about. When she insists that she's a platinum-rank mercenary and shows him her badge, he still has never seen or heard of such a thing. Did you come from some rural area? How do you not know what this badge is? She exclaims, confusion etched across her face. I'm from Seoul, Korea, he replies, and her expression shifts to one of bewilderment. Wait, what? Seoul, Korea? Lucia realizes that the crazy mage might have actually succeeded in his dimension-hopping spell. A mage from my dimension cast a spell on this dungeon that caused it to hop over into yours, she explains. That sounds completely impossible to Jinnik, but it seems that this is exactly what happened. However, since it was a dimensional shift, reversing the magic will allow her to return to her world. Jinnik had felt something was odd, but it turns out this dungeon isn't even from his world. If it returns to its original location, that could spell trouble for him. He asks her if she plans to send the dungeon back immediately, but she can't. It would be too difficult to reverse the magic here, she replies. But there's a potential location that could help. It's a hidden room on this floor that I found a long while ago while searching for an exit. She asks for his help in getting to the hidden room and promises to reward him for his assistance. The conditions don't seem too bad, so he agrees to help her reach it. As they make their way, they fight off a few orcs, and Jinhook notices that she's a lot stronger than he initially thought. That arrow she fired earlier? No joke. Fighting her here would definitely be a disadvantage for him. His safest bet? Cooperate with her and continue assessing the situation. After a little more walking, they decide to rest at a safe spot. Jinhook had packed some chocolates in his pockets for emergencies, and he hands one to her. She takes a liking to it immediately and demands more. After munching through his entire supply, she asks for even more. Unfortunately, that was the last one, and she seems satisfied enough to continue the journey, at least for now. Eventually, they reach a large room that holds the boss of the dungeon. Lucia believes there's a chance the mage's spell could be in that room. To investigate, they'll need to take down the boss. She tells him that he doesn't have to do much. All he needs to do is help her finish it off. Once she takes it down, they can open the door. As soon as they enter, the monster lets out an angry roar before launching an attack. Lucia charges up an arrow and aims straight at the boss's chest. "Watch me closely," she exclaims like some kind of superhero. Then she uses a technique called aura to increase the impact of her attack. She fires the arrow, and it hits the boss head-on, knocking it onto its back. Just one of her attacks was enough to bring down that massive armored monster. Talk about a show-off. Now, Gene Hook has to finish the job before the creature gets back up. Just like with the golems, he has to aim for the core. He jumps onto the fallen creature's chest and bashes his bat right where he believes the core should be. One hit doesn't seem to be enough to bring it down, and suddenly, a large fist rushes at him from the side. He narrowly blocks it with one of his cleric skills, the Holy Shield, like a true pro. Using his momentum, he pushes himself back onto its chest. If one hit isn't enough, then he'll just keep bashing it until it stops moving. Eventually, he manages to bust the core open, and the creature is finally defeated. Level up, almost reaching 200 at this point. Now that the creature is down for the count, he returns to Lucia and asks her to teach him how to use aura. But he already used aura. His shield skill transformed his holy cleric power into aura. To him, it was just a class skill. Lucia, however, doesn't know what that is. But hey, if he can use skills like that, it seems he'll be able to learn how to wield aura faster than she thought. With his potential, he might even be able to start enhancing his attacks with aura right away. But first, there's a condition. She sends him back to get more chocolates for her. Meanwhile, back in the city, Sango walks alongside his secretary, Lee Hyena, discussing a new anomaly that appeared near Gangnam Station. It was detected yesterday, meaning they have about 5 days to prepare before a powerful monster crashes the party. No matter how Sango pictures it, there's no way his guild is going to handle this one alone. However, all the other major guilds have been dispatched overseas, leaving the Titan Guild as the only one left in Korea to fight. Hyena continues searching for capable hunters who are freelancing locally, but none of them seem reliable. Sango, however, has his sights set on someone else. Coincidentally, that someone just happens to be crossing the street. He excuses himself from the conversation with his secretary and chases after Gene Hook, who's carrying home a large box of snacks that the elf asked him to get. When the guild master's voice catches his attention, he offers his proposal for Gene Hook to join the Titan Guild once more. But Gene Hook doesn't have any plans to change his mind. In that case, Sango offers Gene Hook a job as a mercenary, so he can still work for the guild without being a part of it. The reward sounds substantial, which piques Gene Hook's interest, but he promises to only think about it. Classic. He returns to the dungeon and presents the snacks to the elf. She happily devours them all, and it's clear they don't have this kind of food in her world. After her hearty meal, Gene Hook asks her why she's eating down in the basement when they've already defeated the boss monster. She points up at a magic circle on the ceiling and explains that it connects the dungeon to the world he lives in. Because of this, she'll be staying down there for the time being to study it. So, if he wants to learn more about aura, he's going to need to bring her more chocolates. Now that she's done eating, she takes his hand to teach him how to use aura. Firstly, she needs to pour her aura into his body to show him what it feels like. As Gene Hook feels the power flowing into him, Lucia notices a spike of energy. It seems he has more talent for this than she initially expected. The movement of holy power coursing through him is impressive enough that she believes he'll grasp the basics by the end of the day. She commends him for his talent and asks if he can remember the flow of aura in his body. Confidently, he assures her he can, and she acknowledges him with a nod. Before turning to leave the dungeon, she mentions that she was supposed to investigate the magic circle first, but it seems faster to train him on how to use aura. And the best way to do that? Practical experience. She takes him to a different part of the dungeon and tosses him into a horde of monsters. Surprise, she seems to say, as he finds himself fighting an army of goblins and kobolds all at once. Surprisingly, he manages to hold his own while also collecting their corpses. Turning to Lucia, he asks, "Why am I suddenly fighting a horde of monsters when you said I'd be learning how to use aura?" She shrugs. "This is how you learn. Even though I infused a bit of mana into your body so you could feel it, you need to sense the rest on your own. Just activate aura using your holy power. There's no better way to get the instinct for it than in the middle of real combat. Jin-hook is more upset that she didn't mention any of this beforehand and instead just threw him into action with no warning. As they're fighting, the ground starts to shake and a stone golem emerges from the earth. It lets out a loud roar and pushes Jin-hook away, as Lucia explains that he needs to face a true crisis to unlock his potential. All you have to do is focus and try to feel the holy power coming from the shield you generate with your skill. The shield is made of aura, so once you get the hang of it, you'll pick it up quickly. Easier said than done, especially since he doesn't consciously activate the holy shield. How am I supposed to feel any aura from something that turns on automatically? He wonders. Just then, the monster brings down a huge fist toward him, and he blocks it with the holy shield again. This time, though, he feels something, a strange energy gathering around his left hand, the one activating the skill. This must be what holy power feels like. The golem attacks again, and Jin-hook summons his holy shield once more. Except this time, it has a different shape than he remembers. The sensation of summoning the shield is also different. This must be mana, he thinks. But the golem doesn't give him time to figure all this out and smashes down on the shield, sending Jin-hook flying back. Lucia mocks him from her podium, saying, "I told you to get the hang of your skill, not to make foolish mistakes." He was just doing what she told him to, though. As he prepares for another attack, a status window appears in front of him. He has acquired a new skill called Holy Power Application. This skill allows him to use Holy Power to enhance his attack and defense based on how much Holy Power is used. Wait, so there are ways to gain skills beyond just a job change, he thinks. Lucia notices him spacing out and decides to take matters into her own hands. "It seems that facing a golem while learning aura is too much for you," she remarks, offering to take care of it from there. But Jin-hook quickly recovers himself and tells her to stand down. "Now that I have a grasp on my new powers, I should be able to handle everything." He charges at the golem, leaping off the ground to narrowly dodge another stone fist aiming right at him. While in the air, he focuses his mana on the bat and uses a front flip to gain more momentum before bringing the mana-enhanced bat down onto the golem's head. The monster falls, but he's not satisfied yet. He lands on its chest and focuses one more time, trying to channel even more mana into his bat before bringing it down right onto the golem's chest. At that moment, he unlocks a new skill called Holy Aura. With his enhanced weapon, he stabs the golem and successfully breaks the core. Unlocking his Holy Aura also allows him to gain new skills like Precision Strike and Unyielding. Thanks to Lucia's training, he unlocked 2 passive skills and an active skill. But Lucia is more concerned about the fact that he learned how to use aura in battle so quickly. She was expecting to just teach him the basics and call it a day, but now she has to see this through to the end. She takes one of her arrows and brings down a wall, opening up the area to an even larger horde of monsters. Jin-hook is not impressed, but he readies his bat and prepares for another battle. "Here we go again," he thinks, steeling himself for the chaos ahead. The battle with the monsters in the dungeon takes a lot out of him, and by the time he goes to sell the monster corpses, he's exhausted. He looks so tired that the black market boss, Junu, notices him when they meet. Jin-hook appears as if he just emerged from a war zone. Junu decides not to ask too many questions and gets down to business, accepting the monster corpses. He brings up the topic of the alcohol he sold to them last time, marketing it as traditional artisan soju. Since it hit the market, orders have been flooding in, and the drink has become incredibly popular in a short time. "I could focus on selling liquor and never worry about money again," Junu muses. With enough money to last him for the rest of his life and a small business already set up, Jin-hook heads home to rest. His training with Lucia has left him immensely tired, and just seconds after lying down in bed, he passes out. Not long after, he's jolted awake by the sound of a disaster alert. A loud, automated voice urges everyone on the street to evacuate and get to safety. Today is the day of the monster invasion, but it seems to have come early this month. Monster invasions usually happen randomly, but there's a certain one that occurs after a set period of 1 month. This invasion is pretty common, and usually Hook would seize the opportunity to catch some low-level monsters for some quick cash. This time, though, he's too tired to care. The large guilds will take care of it anyway, right? He thinks. That was the plan until a notification pops up on his phone, informing him that due to the urgency of the invasion, the rewards for monsters would be tripled. With triple the rewards up for grabs, Hook can't ignore the invasion anymore. He steps out onto the street to see if he can take some monsters down and cash in. Meanwhile, security officials guide people and try to clear the streets while the Titan Guild battles hordes of monsters running through the city. The security line is already breaking due to the number of monsters trying to push through, and Sango is running out of stamina to keep up the fight. No matter how many he takes down, more just keep popping up. The guild members are already at their limits, and even though it looks like they have the upper hand, things aren't looking too promising. The guild's secretary watches the fight worriedly from behind safety. Even though everything seems to be going well thanks to the guild master, she can tell they're getting stretched thin. If only they had one more powerful hunter to turn the tide. Her mind wanders to a man the guild master found promising not too long ago. She takes her phone and calls Hook. He's in the middle of fighting some goblins when he picks up. She offers him a chance to fight with the Titan Guild, promising hefty compensation in return. He asks for 5 times the normal compensation, and she suggests they meet at a predetermined place to discuss more. When they meet, she offers him 4 times the compensation instead, and he reluctantly agrees. She hands him a device that will keep track of how many monsters he kills, so they can calculate his contribution to the guild. If you make more than an average contribution to the fight, you'll get everything you're asking for. Now that he's got a chance to show off his abilities and get properly paid for it, he takes off toward the fight to lend a hand. The secretary watches him leave, wondering if he'll live up to the expectations that Sango has of him. He was once able to take down an Anyan by pure luck, but his skills are still uncertain. He arrives on the battlefield and immediately targets a rampaging ogre, shocking the crowd. In one quick strike, he manages to kill it, leading everyone else to believe he must be at least an A-rank hunter. A rank is close, he thinks, but I have to be stronger than an A rank with my current abilities. He takes a moment to drink a mana potion to recharge. Thanks to Lucia's intense training, he's reached level 200. Normally, he wouldn't be able to face an ogre, but as long as his mana doesn't run out, he should be able to keep up with an S-rank hunter. Right now, he has over 1,500 mana potions, which means all the monsters around him are just money makers. Elsewhere, Doan takes down monsters alongside his guild members. He notices the monsters are drastically decreasing and turns to see a group watching someone take down monsters with ease. Curious, he checks on them and sees the one person he hates the most right now, Hook. He yells orders to the stunned hunters, telling them to stop daydreaming and go back to fighting monsters. Why is this guy here, and who invited him? Just seeing Hook reminds him of their last encounter, where his embarrassing moment was broadcast all over the news. That last time must have been due to a lot of luck, but this time, since he's alone, there'll be no problem taking him out and putting him in his place. With that in mind, he rushes toward Hook, hoping to fix his nasty habit of being in the worst place at the wrong time. Unluckily for him, the C-rank hunter notices him far too early and counters his attack, sending Yin flying and knocking him out yet again. Sorry, not today, Hook thinks as he brushes off the commotion. Meanwhile, Sango stares down a rampaging minotaur. His mana is almost gone, and he's out of stamina. The minotaur raises its club to attack, just as Sango contemplates retreating to regain his stamina. But before it can hit him, a voice calls out behind him. Hook jumps in from above, grabs the minotaur by the horn, and slams it into the ground. For a C-rank hunter to take down a minotaur in one hit, it looks like his judgment about Hook was spot on. As he takes down the monster, Sango approaches to show his appreciation for the help. Hook shrugs it off, saying, "The guild master called me and promised a hefty pay in return for my help, so there's no need to thank me." Sango then takes this chance to ask him again to join their guild. "If you join forces with us, opportunities like this will keep popping up." Hook takes a moment to consider it and finally replies, Once we finish up with the remaining monsters, then I'll think about it. As they talk, Sango receives a call from Hyena. She tells him to look at the sky, where the clouds have turned black, and the weather has become fiery, crackling with lightning. Something huge and menacing lurks among the clouds, and it does not appear friendly. The creature shoots lightning down at everything, targeting both monsters and hunters while damaging buildings as it flies overhead. It's so high in the sky that their skills can't reach it, leaving them with no way to attack. Sango suggests returning to his guild to assess the situation and invites Jinnik to join him. Reluctantly, Jinnik agrees, and they reconvene in his office. They run various tests, only to find that nothing they've done so far can affect the creature or defend against its attacks. Every attempt to stop it has been nullified or destroyed. They realize they need something with immense firepower capable of long-range destruction. Lucia immediately comes to mind, and Sango recognizes that there may be a way to bring it down after all. As Jinnik leaves to fetch Lucia, the executives of the Titan Guild gather to discuss Sango's apparent favoritism toward the C-ranker. The other guild members brainstorm alternative methods to defeat the monster without relying on Jinnik, but they find themselves with no other choice. All other strategies are guaranteed to fail, leaving them with only the option to trust the one hunter with a plan. They consider calling the Gutiya Guild, a large group filled with A-rank and higher mages, but no, they don't care about casualties. Inviting them would likely lead to many deaths. The room falls silent as they acknowledge their limited options. Meanwhile, Jinnik emerges from the portal with Lucia, thanking her for agreeing to help and promising her as many sweet treats as she desires in return. They ascend to the top of the Titan Guild headquarters, where Jinnik shows her the monster terrorizing their city. He asks if she can take it down, and she confidently assures him that she can. The monster is so large that she could hit it with her eyes closed. It's a level 300 creature, the highest ever recorded, and she says she can eliminate it, but first she needs some assistance. The building's roof can't withstand her power, so she asks Jinnik to prepare a shield to absorb most of the impact. Not wanting to see multiple buildings destroyed, Jinnik calls the guild leader to inquire about the potential damage once they take down the monster. Sango tells him not to worry about collateral damage and to focus solely on bringing the creature down. With that settled, Jinnik prepares the shield while Lucia charges 2 arrows to strike the beast. She aims carefully and releases the arrows, creating a massive shockwave that pushes Jinnik back, even with the shield. The 2 shots soar through the sky and land a direct hit on the monster, obliterating half its body from the impact. The Titan Guild watches in awe from the ground, amazed that Jinnik managed to pull it off so effortlessly. Hunter Kong Jinnik continues to impress. The whiplash from Lucia's attack leaves smoking trails on the building's helipad. While it wasn't the time to hold back, this was excessive. Lucia, on the other hand, is disappointed that the monster was so weak, attributing her ease in defeating it to her immense strength. Regardless, the job is done, and it's time for her to head back. She hands Jinnik a tracker that monitors his points, showing a staggering 240 points. Before leaving, she warns him not to place too much trust in others, especially when money is at stake. People's minds tend to cloud with greed. She advises him to be wary, as she has learned from her many adventures. Jinnik assures her he'll be fine and will handle anything that seems off. They part ways, and he heads down to the street where he's met by Sango and his secretary. They catch up with him and ask how he managed to take down such a formidable monster alone. Jinnik politely declines to share, calling it a secret. One of the executives is offended and doesn't believe a mere C-ranker could defeat such a giant beast. However, Jinnik shows them the monster tracker, displaying a substantial number of points, proving he indeed took it down. Sango stops the executive there and apologizes to Jinnik for the outburst. The executive watches in anger, feeling Sango favors a C-ranker over his guild members. He decides it's time for a change, as Sango is hindering the guild's future. He pulls out his phone and dials an unknown number. By the next day, rumors spread throughout the city that an ordinary C-ranker defeated the giant monster. Members of the Titan Guild are skeptical, but verifying the information isn't too difficult. Word also circulates that the guild master personally offered Jinnik direct entry into the Titan Guild, which he turned down. He must be confident in his skills to reject such a significant offer from Sango himself. The rumors even reach the Allron Guild, who learn that Andoin has been hospitalized after the monster invasion. Known for his impressive skills, it's revealed he was defeated by the rumored C-rank hunter. If this is true, the rumors hold some weight. The Allron Guild scouts decide to meet with Jinnik to verify the information. He might have unlocked a hidden class, which is exceptionally rare for hunters. If that's the case, they need to recruit him into their guild before another guild takes him, or they eliminate him. Meanwhile, Jinnik sleeps soundly after the battle, having exhausted all his stamina. He passes out as soon as he gets the chance, and wakes up 2 days later, realizing the toll of overexertion. He walks into his living room and finds that Lucia has created a massive mess with all the snacks he bought her. She managed to eat everything in just 2 days. With no food left in the fridge, her only option was to consume the snacks. Since he hadn't opened the portal for her, she couldn't return to the dungeon. This confuses Jinnik, as he's never needed to open the portal before. It's always been accessible. He heads to the attic to show her that the portal is indeed open, but this doesn't make sense to her since there was nothing there moments ago. She instructs him to step away from the door, then reopens it, revealing that there's nothing there now that he's stepped back. Jinnik is baffled, as he has only ever seen the dungeon open. Lucia theorizes that the dungeon responds only to him, suggesting it's imprinted directly on him, meaning it could have fallen on his head. Luckily, it was a failed spell. He decides not to dwell on that, and instead orders food for both of them. Lucia wonders how he found his way back to the house after they defeated the monster. She explains that she placed a recognition suppression spell on it, which should have made it impossible to locate. Jinnik asks why she would cast such a spell on his house. She reveals that strange individuals from some guild named Allron had been visiting while he slept, which annoyed her enough to ensure they could never return. Jinnik is perplexed as to why those large guilds would be searching for him. He pulls out his phone to discover what happened during his slumber. The first headline he sees grabs his attention. News of him defeating the giant monster has gone viral. A video circulates that clearly shows him fighting alongside the Titan Guild, and it seems he has become famous overnight. This newfound attention is problematic. His greed in using Lucia's power has placed him under a spotlight. The hunter industry is territorial, and strong competitors are swiftly eliminated. He resolves not to dwell on the past. With Lucia done eating, they return to the dungeon to deliver their loot to the dwarf. Thanks to Lucia's powerful shot, the monster's body is too damaged to salvage, leaving them only with its head. The old man is frustrated with Lucia for overdoing it and ruining valuable material, revealing a natural animosity between them. Jinnik interrupts their argument, asking the dwarf if he can craft something from the corpse. The dwarf digs out an organ from the head, which allows it to produce lightning. With that, Jinnik can enchant his baseball bat to create lightning as well. He inquires how the dwarf would like to be compensated, but the dwarf simply wants Lucia to leave his workshop. Angered, Lucia shakes with rage, and Jinnik has to calm her down by promising more sweets. After barely preventing her from shooting a hole through the dwarf's head, he heads back into the city to buy her the promised treats. On his way back home, Jean-Hook senses something lurking in an alleyway. It seems like someone is tracking him. With a quick flick, he drops his groceries behind a wall and calls out to the creep following him. "Hey, I can see you, you know." A voice answers back, surprised that Jean-Hook noticed him at all. Suddenly, a figure appears out of nowhere and rushes at him, swinging a sword. Jean-Hook barely manages to block the attack with his bat. The newcomer is astonished that Jean-Hook could even see him, confirming the rumors. Jean-Hook is more than just an ordinary C-rank. "Guess I'll have to show you just how ordinary I am," Jean-Hook thinks as he pushes the attacker back and leaps at him for a counterattack. Since the attacker wants to keep his identity a secret, Jean-Hook decides he'll just have to beat some sense out of him until he spills the beans. However, the attacker has a different plan. He uses a skill to turn himself invisible. Jean-Hook can just faintly feel his presence, enough to dodge and block most of the attacks, but he knows he can't keep this up forever. If only he had his usual bat. But the old dwarf is working on it, so he's stuck with a regular aluminum bat. This is going to be a long day, he thinks, realizing he needs to make a run for it. Just as he decides to escape, the hooded attacker attaches a tracking device to his shirt. Jin-hook sprints toward a crowded area, hoping to hide, but the attacker's device allows him to track his every move. The trail leads to a bathroom in a department store. Perfect, he mutters, camouflaging himself. He kicks open a stall door, ready to pounce. Except there's nothing there but the tracker stuck to the wall. Seriously? A bathroom trap? Jin-hook realizes he's been played. Just as he's about to kick himself for falling for that, the assassin charges up a fireball, aiming straight at Jin-hook and the poor kid who just wanted to use the toilet. With no time to spare, Jin-hook throws up a shield to protect them both. The assassin uses the smoke as cover to escape. Great, a fireball and a runaway, he thinks, shaking his head. As he tries to catch his breath, an object suddenly stabs right through the assassin's chest, killing him instantly. Oops, Jin-hook says, blinking in surprise. I didn't mean to kill him. Just as he's lamenting the situation, a status window pops up in front of him. It acknowledges the murder, but labels it as self-defense. Well, that's a relief, he sighs, but I could have done without the drama. Before he can process it further, two detectives approach him, asking questions about the incident. He tries his best to cooperate, explaining how he was just minding his own business when chaos erupted. Luckily, since he didn't receive the villain trait, the detectives don't suspect him of foul play. They confirm he was acting in self-defense and let him go, but not before warning him not to mention the words murder, self-defense, or villain. They hand him a device that will monitor his every word. Great, a babysitter, he mutters under his breath as they let him go. As Jin-hook heads home, he can't shake off the feeling that he's become the center of attention in the hunter community. The detectives speculate among themselves, noting how he managed to block a powerful attack while protecting a child and took down a high-level hunter. There's no way this guy is just a C rank, they murmur. I hope he doesn't do anything to lose our trust. Back at home, Jin-hook checks out his new class, the Inquisitor. It seems to build off his cleric abilities, but with a twist. His skills are now more self-focused, allowing him to act like a tank while healing himself. Plus, he gains the ability to see the karma of others. Great! Now I can judge people on top of everything else, he quips, shaking his head at the irony. Excited to test out his new powers, he returns to the dwarf's workshop. As promised, his weapon has been enchanted to send out lightning attacks. All he has to do is think about it, and it sends out up to 3 charged lightning blasts. Talk about shocking, he chuckles, already envisioning the chaos he could unleash. However, Lucia is less impressed. I can't sense any holy power from you now, she says, looking concerned. What did you do in the human world? He shrugs, explaining he can't share much because of the monitoring device. The dwarf, overhearing, offers to dispose of the device if Jin-hook completes a simple task. Retrieve an item from a dangerous location using a compass he provides. Me? A rookie? Dangerous? Sounds like a fun day. Jin-hook exclaims, grinning. It looks like he'll have to wrap this episode here, but there's definitely more growth to come from him. If you enjoyed this thrilling journey with Jin-hook and want to dive deeper into his adventures, be sure to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more captivating stories. Thank you for watching. Your support means the world.